going on, Internet? Eric Bandholz back again with another e-commerce conversations. I hope all is well on the other side of the Internet. On the other side of the Internet from me, the one and only Shakil. What's up, man?
What's going on, Eric? How are you?
I'm great, man. Now that we're catching up, I feel like we saw each other at a friend's birthday party. How many months ago was that?
I think that was 2 months ago, all the way in Lago Vista, right? Somewhere
Yeah,
there.
and you gave me some great advice that I still remember and I think about. And you said, if you've become the bottleneck of the business, it's time to get out of the way.
Yeah, I think I remember that we were by that airplane. I think we were talking about that. I mean, yeah, that's correct.
I want to, well, before we get into it, why don't you give our listeners a real quick rundown of who the heck you are, what the heck you do?
Yeah, I was making money on the internet for a while. So in 2012, got started in e-commerce way back ago, um, and then in 2013 bought my first online company. This was before anybody was really buying e-commerce companies, and I really enjoyed the process of buying, improving, creating value. So in 2014, I decided to do it again. And when I got to 2018, I had bought 12 brands. I think we were doing collectively over $50 million in annual sales, had 50 plus employees. It was going great. But I transitioned after 2018. So during the COVID days, I ended up selling most of my brands and got involved in this wholesale business, selling PPE to distributors, complete different model from the e-commerce world, and ended up uh, becoming a minority partner in that company, and now do real estate, just buying land, doing strip centers and gas stations.
PPE, for those who don't know.
It's yeah, it's protective equipment, so gloves, masks. We don't sell masks, but a lot of gloves. So I own gloves.com.
Yeah, like surgical gloves and, not like driving gloves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of disposable products.
Yeah. And when we were talking about that, it was pretty interesting because, as you mentioned, it's a completely different business model than traditional e-com, where it's like Facebook ads or meta ads, branding, beautiful photography. Walk me through that growth strategy for that brand.
Yes, I think the last time I was on this podcast was 4 years ago. We spoke a lot about gloves, and it's funny when you Google my name, that's one of the first things that pops up is entrepreneur lost $6 million. I still get some outreach about that too, but yeah, lost a lot of money. But the business model behind this is unlike e-commerce, where we do have an e-commerce front, gloves.com. The majority of the sales is through wholesale. And the way that works is we import our products from overseas, bring them here, store them at 3PLs. Um, we occupy about 400,000 square feet of warehousing space right now. And we have sales reps that go out and go sell the product. They sell to your distributors, like Cisco, and Cisco then resells them to your end business owners like restaurants, your McDonald's, for example, or your Taco Bell's. But we sell to Cisco, and we build that relationship through our sales reps, and that's sort of how the model works. It's all the orders are driven through our back end system. So we have EDI integrations. A lot of automation we use, but they submit an order, and yeah, essentially we're more of a logistics company, Eric. We bring products from overseas, keep them in our warehouse, ship it to the customer.
There's a lot about that because that's a nine-figure business, and it's like a very specific niche, which is just crazy. There's that much demand. out there. How do you pick that niche to where you know it can handle? Because this whole thing works at a mega scale. It's not going to work at what I'm doing, just a couple $1 million a year.
Yeah, it's not a business I started, so I acquired it with a private equity group, and the brand's been around for 30 plus years. So I had the history behind um, the sales it was doing, but the main thing we look at is, what is the total market, share of a product, right? You're right. Nobody thinks about disposable gloves being a huge industry, but it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And if you start thinking about it, you'll start seeing a lot of people use gloves. Your nail salons, to your barber shops, to even if you go to HEB, go to food aisle, the people that are cutting deli. I mean, everybody uses gloves. You're protecting your hands, even when you're gardening. So there's a lot of people that use gloves. We're not exclusively selling gloves. We're selling all kinds of wearables. Your Buffon caps, you would like look great, by the way, Eric, in a Buffon cap. We have beard covers, right? So it's all disposable products. But something I learned from the e-commerce world was your consumables have great repeat business. And if I were to do a business again, I would just stay in the consumables, like beard brand. Once you run out of the product, you're gonna reorder again. So your repeat rate is better than your non-consumable product. Your lifetime value of the customer is higher. So that's pretty attractive to me in that sense. So that's why our business is big, is once people run out, they come back and order again.
Well, how did you find that business? And because you scaled it quite a bit, it's not like you bought a 9-figure business and it's doing 9 figures. You completely transformed that business.
Yeah, we acquired it for it came with inventory only, so we had to rebuild the business up, and we had to hire the people, we had to hire the tech, um, but it was a large business before. So all we had to really do, it's kind of what I've done with my e-commerce brands is, what is the low-hanging fruit that I could go after and just grow the business, right? So the brand was well known. We just all we did was go back to our old customers, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and tell them, hey, new ownership, same quality brands, the issues that you had in the past, we've solved all that. Come back to us. We'll give you great pricing, great service, great shipping, fast, product delivery. So we offered all those things back to them, and so customers started coming back again. The great thing about this business is I don't do any marketing. Unlike e-commerce where you're consistently running Facebook ads, tweaking them, Google ads, emails, TikTok. Here, uh, my sales reps are my marketing arm, and they have metrics, they have KPIs where they have to hit, and the more sales they bring in, the bigger their bonuses are. So we've done a good job with the incentives there. So that's how we've been able to grow the business.
You mentioned before we hit record that you're not an operator and that you find operators. I want you to walk me through how you can find the talent and get on the same page with them and allow them to execute and thrive and scale up a business.
Yeah, I looked at myself in the mirror, and I know that the things I'm good at and things I'm not good at. Operations bore me. Uh, I am unable to get into the weeds, and so uh, back during the e-commerce days, I've realized that, and I'm like, just gonna hire this out. And, I really started off initially outsourcing this stuff, right? So I'd go to, I think it was called Odesk, Upwork now. Just hired somebody overseas, and I said, "Hey, uh, I want you to run my small e-commerce business, and I don't want to do the day-to-day work. you talk to the customers or handle the customer service. We have agencies, take calls with them. Here's what I've done so far. And it was a mess when I started. I didn't have a SOP in place, but I've really tweaked it since then. And what's worked for me today is finding good people is hard. It's even harder to find somebody after doing a 1 hour phone call because it's yes, you talk to them, and anybody looking for a job is selling themselves. They're selling themselves. They want the job. So sometimes what they're stating is maybe not as accurate. I've seen that too. And so it takes some trial and error. But what's worked really is we use staffing agencies as well. And then we'll make posts on LinkedIn. I have an HR department now, so I forget what, I think it's Monster or something that connects to a lot of the job posts. And what you really want to do is in your job post, really detail out what are you looking for? I'm looking for a leader to run a 9-figure business. I want them to motivate the sales reps, really detail it out, number one. And then number two is the incentive portion of it. Eric, I think you and I also operate differently. We're motivated by different things. Yes, people want more money, but some people really want job security. Some people really want a fixed income. So that's what I try to understand there is what are you motivated by? If you want a fixed income and you're a badass that is gonna run the company, cool. Or are you somebody that will take a lower base but a higher incentives, right? So that's kind of phase two of finding somebody is good job posting. You talk to people, you filter out everybody that is just mass applying by giving a 10 questionnaire saying, hey, if you were the CEO of this business, if you were the managing person of this business, how would you grow it? Whoever answers gets to move on to the next round. They'll take calls with our team, understand them a little bit better. I'll take the last call. But that's my approach is talking to them, understanding them. I used to do personality tests, Eric. I don't do them anymore.
I've always I think like one of the problems I have is like there's this process we've developed for like most team members, like the people in customer service or graphic designers, marketing coordinators, stuff like that, where we have a very good like top grading process. But I always, and I don't know if this is my own head trash, but I feel like hiring like elite level leadership of a company, there's like a separate process. Like it feels like they don't want to go through kind of like the same thing. They don't want to go through the personality test. They don't want to, go through like, the 10 layers of interviewing. And then I'll argue with myself and I'll say, well, the type of person I want would have no issue going through those things if they really wanted the job. So I don't know where you fall on that. If it's just basically work with, like executive recruiters and headhunters and they go through, do all that prep stuff. Or do you legitimately hire your chief of CEO through that same process?
Yeah, if I were to be looking again, I would be going through the recruiters. Let them do the heavy lifting. Sometimes it's to stay anonymous as well, because you have a current CEO and you're looking to replace them as well too. So if I were to do the process again, I would go through a recruiter. I think they charge 15% or so of your 1 year salary, and I'm okay with that. And it's because if I start doing the hiring, it takes a lot of time. But if I also make the wrong hire, think about restarting that process again too. It just takes too much time and stress. So I would have, I would have gone through a staffing agency if I were to do it again.
What does your relationship look like with the CEO?
it it's a few components to that from a uh, calls or meetings perspective. One call a week, keep a very high level. We have a dashboard. For e-commerce, we did a lot of EOS with our wholesale business. It's very simple. What's our revenue looking like? What is it tracking like? Um, your SWOT analysis, what's going well, what's not going well, where do we see opportunities? It's just a very simple 30-minute phone call. I get an agenda beforehand, and we talk through those things. I am not somebody that uh, looks over somebody's back and seeing what they're doing. I really want to motivate and empower people, and you do that by letting them lead, but also letting them make mistakes, right? And so, what I like to do is give guardrails and say, hey, look, we're trying to scale from, call it, $1 million to $1.2 million this year. How are we going to do that? And it's not me answering, it's the CEO answering. And they'll say, okay, well, we'll grow it by $200,000 a year. We could tap into this market, blah, blah, blah. And I'll then say, okay, break that down now. Break that down into quarterly metrics, KPIs. Break that down even further into monthly KPIs, right? So it could be as simple as saying our conversion rate is 1% and we want to get to 1.5%. Well, how are we going to do that? We'll do A/B testing on this homepage, that page. So I'll ask the questions, kind of given the guardrails of where to direct, but it's them answering. It's them setting up these metrics, because when you allow them to set those metrics, it aligns them and it makes them even work harder to say, hey, I created this, I have to do this, versus I I just give them this high level goal, right? So it's all about empowerment there.
Yeah. And then what does compensation typically look like?
It varies depending on the company size, but if you're running a multi seven figure, eight figure company, uh, there's going to be a base anywhere from 150 to 300,000 at least. So you have the base, and then you have different portions to the incentives. So we do give equity in terms of phantom, where phantom equity is basically you stay on with the company, you get X percentage of
It's
equity
like
over
profit
years.
sharing, basically.
So that's another component, profit sharing. So
Okay.
we'll give some equity, and then we do profit sharing as well, based off what the company's making. And then we'll also do some type of bonuses. The bonuses can be on uh, company culture, for example. It could be on making, you know, less than 1% of issues happening in the company. They vary on the company size, but there is different components into the incentives. It all comes down to uh, motivations for the person, because Eric, if my CEO drives in $1 million in extra sales this year and our profit margins are 20%, they just brought me $200,000 in additional profit, which in today's multiples, if our companies are selling for 4 to 5 times multiples, they just brought me an extra $1 million in enterprise value. I'm happy to share a portion of that with them.
Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer for a lot of entrepreneurs is when the math works out. I think, that's always the best case scenario. You hire someone, they're talented, they grow the business, they perform on their own. I think where the challenge is when it's the opposite. You get someone who can't seem to execute on what they say they're going to do. You've done all the things where they're setting the goals, they're setting expectations, and then they're not able to follow through. What is the length of time that you give them before maybe it's time to make that switch?
Yeah, I think a lot of people get too comfortable and they're hopeful that somebody will improve. And so people are just slowed to fire and move on. And that's understandable. Like somebody's running a business, you're not spending much time on it. I'll look at it next month, right? For me, even though I'm not operationally uh, working in the business, it's an important component for me. And so what we'll do is track the metrics. It's not working. Hey, why isn't it working? I and I've made wrong hires too. I've had people that did not work out too. And so we'll do some kind of PIP, performance improvement plan, give them a month to fix things. And if it doesn't, then we move on. So it's not like it just came out of nowhere and they were let go, right? And so if that occurs, I would ask the current CEO to stay on for 60 days until we find a replacement. A couple of times they're like, no, I'm going to go look for another job. But sometimes people will stay to help transition all the knowledge. But essentially a month, you're given a month to fix things.
Yeah. And then, in that interim, do you just promote someone? I mean, because it's hard to hire a CEO in 60 days, is it not?
Absolutely, it is. Sometimes these recruiters already have warm leads that they've kept, so it depends. Um, but you could hire somebody, but training somebody it takes time, right? And so 60 days is pretty aggressive. It's been done, but it's pretty aggressive. During that interim period, I may have to step in, or B, if there is a suitable candidate within the company, we'll hire within.
Yeah. Let's talk about your new life. Before we hit record, you also talked about how in the past maybe you were chasing dollars and now you're chasing time. What happened with you to make that transition?
I would say if you kind of look at sort of waves of a entrepreneur, even you jump in a business, you have all these ideas, you're very creative, you're working a lot of hours, but then usually you get burnt out. I think it just happens a lot with entrepreneurs. I got burnt out. I also had greed and ego take over me where I lost a lot of money too. And so once I was able to recover, I sort of asked myself, what's important? I have two young kids. I've been grinding for the last 15 years. Why do I really want to do this? Like what's motivating me? And once you start asking those questions, you know, motivation 15 years ago is different from what it is today. And for me, raising my kids, being in front of them, not being away was very important to me. Um, and you can only make that decision, Eric, once you have a base of income coming in. So I wouldn't be able to do this if I had no money coming in. You can't you can't have no money coming in and just sit around either, unless you want to live on the streets, right? So I was able to create my base, but I didn't want to take it to another level right now. So I've decided to just chill. I'm chasing that new asset, which you said, which is time. So just chilling now.
You've also gone you've gone from less and less digital. So you went from e-com to wholesale business to business to pumping gas, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I tell people I'm still selling products. They're just not digitally. They're at your brick and mortar store. So yeah, that's
Walk
what
me
I've converted to.
through, that shift to get into real estate, get into convenience stores, get into strip malls, and the opportunity there, and kind of like what is the draw and what is the appeal?
Part of it was with e-commerce. I saw two things. Number one, your revenue fluctuating quite a bit, Where like in March, we're doing well, things are going well, but then April, it just drops. Why is it dropping? Oh, this algorithm shift, or this ad's not working, or the supply chain issue. And so these things were out of my control. And so the predictability of revenue wasn't there. And that was something I was aiming for, almost like a software, but e-commerce wasn't giving that. It was just changing around so much. That was really stressful, right, Eric? I'm sure you can relate, and other listeners of e-commerce businesses can relate to that too. So that's why I kind of made that shift, number one, for that predictability of revenue. But then two was generating more wealth, not through profitability, but more through equity building. And there's a lot of podcasts out there too about generating wealth through real estate, and that got me really hooked on. Was my family was already in it, so I had sort of this base to lean off as well. So that's why I got into it. Was two reasons: generating that equity wealth, and then predictability of revenue coming in.
Is it fun or not?
It is. It is fun. It is fun because it's challenging. It's new, right? So it's challenging in that sense. But then two is it doesn't require a lot of my time and my focus. For me, my steps are finding the land, and I'm able to find the land by having brokers and talking to different kind of brokers and developers send me these deals. I get to negotiate on pricing, which I really enjoyed during the e-commerce days. And then the real fun begins, which is here's a piece of land. What do you build on it, right? You have to do that work before you buy it, but it's how much of a building size do I want to put on it? Where do I get access from? What kind of engineering work do I want to do? Architectural work do I want to do? And as you go through the process, there's different issues that happen. Like sometimes we've ran into environmental issues as well. Sometimes we've ran into access issues where we realize that, hey, this county only allows 150 feet you can only get access after 150 feet, and my lot on that side only has 100 feet. Well, what do we do? And so you have these different challenges that happen. It's been fun in that process, just kind of learning, but also just physically seeing something that you've planned out actually come to fruition. So that's been a fun process.
Is this do you have like a general contractor partner in this, or what does the team look like to execute on this?
Yeah, so we do have a general contractor. He does a really good job. He's not my partner, but he's just a general contractor. Some people in this industry, Eric, become the general contractors themselves. Like I could become the general contractor and probably save 15%, right? So if your project cost is $10 million, you could probably save $1.5 million. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of headache. I don't want to do that. I'd rather stand in front of my computer and talk to you, Eric. So I'll sub that out to a general contractor who deals with the people. So you have your GC, who works a lot with your subcontractors for the roofing, for the cement, for the foundation, for your MEP, for your plumbing, all that stuff. Like he'll handle. We'll work with various banks as well. We'll work with an architectural firm. We'll work with the engineering firm. Those are kind of the main components of it. There's a little bit more that gets involved with your traffic control, where you have to hire somebody for what's called your traffic impact analysis that's required by the city. So I'd say there's about 20 contractors, agencies that I work with per project.
Are you so you're debt financing all this? Like how much do you typically put down? Is about 20%?
Yeah, for land, it's anywhere from 25 to 35%. But once you have your plans approved for construction, you have to put down 20%. So you put down some money for the land, but then you put down even more money for the construction of it. But yeah, about 20%.
And then from there, is it generally cash flowing positive on open or?
Takes about 6 months to stabilize. So you can work with the bank to do interest only after you get your CO, certificate of occupancy. So that's what we like to build in. So it takes about 6 months to really stabilize because it's a brand new footprint.
Yeah. And then is your goal to sell it after it's been built and established and then move on to the next project or just accumulate a bunch of
No,
properties?
this is something I'm going to keep for a long time because for me it's a little different from e-commerce because it e-commerce fluctuated more here with real estate. You're at this traffic light, you're at this corner, and so you're always going to have these cars coming in every day. For me, it's not about flipping. I'm going to keep it for a long time.
Yeah. Sweet. Where can people fill up their gas station? Or where can they support you, follow you, find you?
Yeah, that's another thing that's been changing is a lot of people have been buying electric vehicles, and people are like, "Are you scared that gas stations are going to go away?" I'm like, "No, we provide. It's called a convenience store. We provide convenience. Yeah, you'll go to HEB. Yeah, you'll get delivery services, but we still have a lot of people stopping by for coming in. So we're all around Austin. Snack Stop is our store name, and yeah, go check it out.
Sweet. Shakil, I always love connecting with you. You are one of I admire greatly what you have built, and not only what you've built, how you've built it, and the way you do it. So thank you for sharing your time with me, which, as you know, is a precious commodity. Hopefully, our listeners have enjoyed this as much as I have. This has been another e-commerce conversations. Cheers. Keep on
Thank you.
growing.